jedan od apsolutnih trendova u industriji hrane, ali također i u ishrani širom sveta, jeste upotreba proizvoda na bazi biljaka. Ovakve vrste ishrane mogu se nazvati veganstvom, vegetarijanstvom, pa čak i fleksetarijanstvom, koje u stvari u osnovi znači upotrebu što manje proizvoda koji sadrže u sebi sastojke animalnog porekla. Zbog ovakvog načina ishrane i ovih trendova, sve više oni proizvođača koji se odlučuju da svoje proizvode baziraju na osnovi biljaka i sve više novih proizvoda koji se nalaze na svetskom tržištu, pa čak i na našem tržištu. S obzirom da je razvoj ovakvih proizvoda jako brz, onda i bezbednost hrane kao sistem mora da isprati sve one aspekte koji su neophodni da bismo imali krajnje proizvode na bazi biljaka koji su bezbedni za svoje konzumente. U ovom vlogu pridružit će mi se čovjek koji je preko 30 godina u industriji hrane, koji je vodeći BRC auditor i čovjek koji je osmislio priručnik za proizvodnju veganskih proizvoda u okviru koga se nalaze također aspekti povezani sa sistemima bezbednosti hrane. U današnjem vlogu sa mnom David McGee iz Engleske, direktor Hayfields Food Safety Consultancy kompanije. Hi David, and thank you for joining me today in this Addicted to Food vlog. I really appreciate you coming here as an expert to whom I'm going to talk about the food safety aspects of the plant-based food, vegan food.
Yes, slight difference, possibly.
Yeah, so for the beginning, I already talked with you about this great development of vegan products in Western countries, but this is something that as a trend in the healthy eating habits, let's call it like that, and also the let's say people's decision of how to use some food products is coming also into this region, in the region of Southeast Europe. And when we talk about the vegan products, we always mention some of the trademarks that there are, that we can see it on the final product. But these trademarks are following also the audits of the producer who are producing these types of products. And these audits are merely focused on the traceability, on the ingredients of the products, but somewhere along the way, the food safety is forgotten. This is the main reason why I wanted to speak with you, who is an expert and who also is a BRC auditor and developed lots of manuals regarding the production of vegan food. And so this is something to start with, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, I agree with you. There's a lot of vegan organizations, certifications where their scheme is put onto the labeling of all the products. And they're very good at knowing what ingredients are plant-based. They're very aware of what products are dairy, fish, or animal, whatever. But what happens is you pay your license, you review all the ingredients, and then that's it. The license can last 12 months. It can last 24 months, depending on how many products and what you want in terms of the license. But the problem is, the first thing I would say for food safety is the supply chain. So they may have an ingredient, the supplier changes, or the raw material changes. How would you know that in that recipe for future batches, even if the traceability is okay, how would you know there's not going to be any either cross-contamination or a mistake in identifying that product as being an animal or plant-based? So these certification bodies don't look at food safety the way a GFSI BRC food safety standard would look at, where they look at the whole picture, starting from the producers, the fields, the farmers, the supply chain, the manufacturers, and then even down to the customer with the labels, how you communicate that safety information. So what I've been trying to do is I've created a vegan food safety standard. Where it's going to be used, I'm not sure yet. There's a company called BVEG certification. I'm hoping that will develop. But so what we look at the supply chain. And what I mean by that is we would actually approve a supplier based on the risk assessment, which is the vegan recipe. And then we would try and work out whether all the controls we've got and the suppliers have got of those raw materials prevents any cross-contamination. Now, one aspect would be if you comply to the food safety legislation regarding labelling, there's all sorts of regulations like FIR, FIC. As long as you put on the label alibi label, and if you think there's a potential allergen risk, then everything's legal. But the problem is if you then buy that product believing, whether you're a vegan or flexitarian or whatever, if you buy that product, you see that vegan sign, are you going to look at the alibi labeling? So if that alibi labeling says this is handled in a factory that contains eggs, fish, mollusks, crustaceans, dairy, and there are genuine risks of cross-contamination, you've got a genuine anaphylactic allergenic risk there. And, you know, if you go onto the Food Standards Agency in the UK, there's many examples of product recalls where products are being brought back because of potential cross-contamination with allergens, and they've got the vegan trademarks. So this is where I was coming from. I wanted to make the customers, the consumers, a lot more trustworthy of the potential cross-contamination. Also, that if there's any changes ongoing, that trustworthiness is maintained. So, you know, if you get your BRC certificate, you don't get it because you were good on the day. You get it because you have supplier approvals. You have systems where if there are any changes, you do formal risk assessments, HACCP, etc. So this is where I was coming from, really. So you're absolutely right. I think there are genuine food safety issues with regards allergens, really.
Yeah, of course.
I could go on, but I'd like you to ask me more questions.
Yeah, of course. So as I'm also a GFSI auditor, actually the auditor for the FSSC 22000 and lots of different other food safety standards. When we go to an audit of the FSSC 22000, these are the GFSI requirements. We, as an auditor, we need to take a look what additional certification schemes are there for the organization. For example, some organization could have the halal certification or the kosher certification. These are the specific group of consumers. For example, the Jewish people or the Islamic people. And regarding this certification, if there are some specific, we as the GFSI auditors also have to check all of these specifics, especially the specifics regarding the cross-contamination. This is a real risk. And specifically, we have to check also the, of course, the purchasing process. So I think the main risk when we talk about the vegan products are starting from the purchasing process, from the suppliers, where we need to build trust in our suppliers. So we need also to have some kind of supplier evaluation or some potential audits. And additionally, we need to have these reception controls where we really have to have some methods of controlling these ingredients that are coming in our production.
Well, can I just say, I didn't realize that you were a GFSI auditor. I think it's great to be able to speak to someone who actually understands the point of view, really. Like you said, we look at everything as the whole picture. The other thing I'd like to say, now that I know that what you do, and you'll understand, is there's no legal requirement for vegan claims. So if you make a claim, whether there's a legal claim or not, and you can actually look at the safety side of it, which is the very nature of your GFSI audits, then, you know, we're covered anyway. So, you know, we'll look at organizational structure. Are people trained? Is the food safety culture aware of the importance of preventing cross-contamination? Are the supervisors being trained in it? Do they understand where the points of attention are? So, for example, if there's white powdered ingredients used for plant-based next to milk or other coloured or colourless powders, you know, are they aware of the dangers of bringing back half-used recipes where they go from animal to vegan? You know, a bit like we're worried about allergen. We look at product A product, it then changes over to product B, and we're worried that the previous packaging has been left behind, or there's any cross-contamination because they haven't cleaned it properly. The principles for vegan products is exactly the same as for allergen products.
Yeah,
so
that would mean
gluten, yeah,
the storaging, the separation of ingredients, the clear labeling, and of course the proper use in the production processes. So if we have only one production line, we will have to think about the production times to have one type of product, and after that some separation, additional cleaning, and some kind of verification that it is properly cleaned before we start with different type of ingredients.
Exactly. And of course, when you do validation, as an example, the cleaning methods, normally we'd be testing for free from gluten, and there's the ELISA tests, R5, Mandelays, and everything else. But what happens when we're testing for fish or something? You know, is that going to be straightforward? Do manufacturers understand what's an accredited test method? So there's all sorts of territories there that need to be expanded on, really. So again, there's food safety issues with that. If you don't have a properly validated cleaning method, and you're assuming there's no cross-contamination with what could be a dairy, which is an allergen, you know, are the manufacturers themselves naive enough to think that their vegan claim is safe? So there's all sorts of gaps, really, in terms of the food safety.
Yeah, of course. I had one issue. This is ice cream producer, and they are producing one ice cream that is water-based ice cream, you know, and it is for vegan type of food. And then they had a customer complaint saying, and this was coming from the vegan who is also a food technologist, and who sent to them the customer complaint saying, there is a one part of the equipment in your production that is made from the bone of the animal. Can you please check it? Because if there is, you know, and they actually check it, they called the producer of the equipment and that part of the equipment, and it was made from the one type of the animal bones. And of course they have changed it. They say thank you to this consumer. But there is also that point that we should think about, and these are the food contact materials that could be also connected with the production of vegan products.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example, because since I've been working with BVeg in terms of what is vegan, what isn't vegan, it's really opened my mind up. I started off with plant-based. You know, is it free from animal products? You've got everything associated with vegans is things like sustainability, GMO, rainforest. Do almonds come which are being picked by monkeys that are mistreated in Indonesia? It gets to the point where I think you have to start from the base, which is food safety, plant-based. You're not going to cause any allergens. You can trust it. But when it starts getting into the ethical side of things, you have to develop that very slowly, and you have to make that very clear in your policy. So I think if GFSI said you need to have a very strong vegan policy that's agreed with your customer specifications, you haven't got a problem. But if you think you're going to have a worldwide global definition of vegan, you can forget it, because it can go on and on and on forever. It will get to the point where you're not allowed to sell your products in Tesco, Sainsbury's, because they sell meat in their retail. So how far do you go before it becomes impossible? You know, I know I've worked with yeast extracts, and there's no animal products in there at all. If you tested it, there's no animal. But the original culture, the the yeast used to grow, was peptone was used, which is from an animal source. Yep. So, you know, the enzymes. So how far do you go? I think common sense would tell you, let's just go for plant-based, which is objective. You know, it follows the same principles as allergens and GFSI. It's something that is practical. You know what to do. And then all the vegan side, like GMO and everything, you could develop it later. That's my opinion anyway.
Yeah. I was also thinking about it. You know, when we say vegan product, all vegan products must be safe. That's it. You know, This is 100%. You need to have the safe product. So you need to have the food safety. So that's it. But when we go to this ethical side, then when you look from the side of the vegan, you're producing in the same area the products that are, you know, plant-based, and you also have some animal-based products in there. So if you look from the side of the animal welfare, etc., well, this is very, very something to discuss.
Yeah, I agree. If it's food safety, then you don't have to worry about allergens, but you don't have to worry about allergens if you do things properly, like a GFSI approach where you are looking at supply chain, you are looking at purchasing, you are looking at cross-contamination, layout, flow, the usual things that an auditor like yourself would look at. You don't go into an audit and see if it's clean, do you? You look at everything.
But I understand completely when we talk about the production, when we talk about the food safety, also issues in this production. So the main thing that we said that we need to take care is the, of course, purchasing, that we purchase the ingredients from the approved suppliers. Of course, we need to take care about some reception controls, about storaging of these ingredients, not to get mixed, and also to think about it as the allergen. And of course, the production process. This is very important. After this, we are coming to the end product, about the labeling, about having some trademark there, etc. And I have noticed that BRC has developed the plant-based global standard that is available on their website, and also on your website you are saying, and also having the link to the BRC plant-based standard. So can you tell me a little bit about this plant-based standard, global standard of the BRC?
Yeah, it's a good idea. It's a starting point, but I think with the BRC, one of the weaknesses is it can be a bit like a checklist. And I'll be perfectly honest, when I do what they call additional modules, which is like the plant-based module, they say it's 4 hours added onto your 2 or 3 day audit. And by the end of that audit, you're quite exhausted. Yeah. And the manufacturers, the technical managers always say, well, we've already covered that in the BRC. And you say, okay, then, and you copy that and change it a little bit. And it doesn't really offer great value often. And also, it's very generic. So I looked at the limitations, the weaknesses of that, and this is how I designed this vegan food safety standards that BVEG certification should be using, hopefully. And what it does, it only focuses on what really is going to cause you a problem with your vegan product. So it looks at it's probably a bit longer, the standard that we've created, compared to the BRC. But the BRC, it feels like it's a bit of a checklist. It's got its strengths, it's got its weaknesses. It's also very mixed up. It talks about cross-contamination in one clause. There's bits of it then in another clause. So what I did, I put everything in a very systematic, logical place, and there's no duplication. And it also, through the training, the auditor actually has to give examples of challenges. So he would have to do a product changeover. He would have to look at supervisors, making sure they're trained, look at the food safety culture, and it's a much more challenging, less checklisty style of approach to the standard, really. So you've got a combination of BRC GFSI approach, but also a much more focused, less checklisty approach. So this is where the difference is, really. So it looks at it understands what's important to plant-based a lot better than the BRC add-on for 4 hours generic module, which I think from history, like your gluten-free additional module, I know from personal experience that it's not challenged as much by the end of the audit. Everybody wants to go home and everybody's scratching their heads wondering why. If you look statistically, there's not many non-conformities raised with these additional modules because people want to go home. This is my opinion anyway.
It happens like that at the end of the long 2 or 3 day audit, of course. Yeah. But I must say this situation reminds me a little bit on the start of the all food safety standards. You know, there were lots of food safety standards like FSSC, IFS, BRC, and each country started required different standards from their suppliers. And at the end, GFSI step up and said, okay, let's have one certification scheme and let's decide what will be acceptable all around the globe. At this point, I feel that there are a lot of vegan, let's say, standards or the certification or the trademarks. And that's nice because we are developing, we are entering a lots of different experience from around the globe. And at the end, I feel that there will be something like global organization that will take care about these certification schemes. Let's call it like that. But what is interesting also is when I looked at this plant-based global standard of the BRC, I saw that there is a small trademark that could be later used, as I understood, on the product, like plant-based informed or something like that, the small trademark. And this also comes into something that I don't understand, because if you are certifying, for example, the BRC, then this is a food safety system certification scheme, and you have the requirement that you will not promote the BRC certification on your final product labeling. But if you go with this additional module, with this plant-based, then you have a trademark that you can use it on your final product. So this is a little bit, like mixed up of everything.
That's it. You know what? I never really thought about that, but I think you're absolutely right, because the BRC have very strict rules with their logos, and you can't do their BRC plant-based certificate without the BRC. Yeah. So I think if we were speaking to the BRC now, they'd be crying, because I think that's a very valid point you've made. In fact, I'll have to look into that. That's very interesting.
Yeah, maybe I didn't read it so detailedly, but somewhere along the lines, I don't see the information that it shouldn't be used at the final product, because at the end, why you are certifying this additional module is to promote something to your consumers. So how you will promote it with the trademark on your product?
Absolutely. You've confused me, because you're not supposed to use the BRC logo on packaging on the products. Yet it's a very good point. I think that's been an oversight. Yeah. Well, they'll have to hire you for the BRC, do things a bit more properly.
Yes, I understand.
It's a good point.
Because we have a lot of, all the food safety standards are always wanting from us, from auditors, to check what are the trademarks on the final packaging. And are they using some trademarks that are maybe registered, and that, or if they design it by their, let's say, marketing department, have they used something that is their own idea, or they have used some trademark that is registered that they need to perform something, and we're always looking into that. And with this, I just have fast read through it, and then I see, okay, there is some commercialization issues there.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. Well, I think BRC have gone from the module for gluten-free. They've now gone for a separate one-day audit, because I think they realised that the module was weak. So they'll have to think about that. They use the celiac cross-grain symbol, which is different, but for the vegan symbol, I think you've got a very valid point. They need to get their policy sorted out. But you've reminded me, another thing is that I believe that the retailers are going to start looking at vegan certification schemes, and the traditional ones that look at the ingredients only, they're going to start going away from them, because I've heard that the retailers are very interested in the BRC and may start to insist on the labelling that they use that as a vegan claim, because it's approaching it more as a food safety certification. So of course you've then got their private label brand protection, which is not just legal and quality, it's their commercial status. And people like Corn, Alpro, they put vegan on their products, but there's no certification with that. So I don't think these vegan trademarks, the one in Holland, the one in the UK, I don't think they're going to be around too much longer if they don't start to recognise the food safety approach. I have actually spoken to various vegan organisations, and they just don't understand food safety. They just want to look at the ingredients and then get their money from the license, really.
Yeah.
So I think it's short-term looking, but the world is changing, and I think all the Mintel research and all the world global changes, I think vegan products is definitely here to stay. It's not just a fad, and I can see it getting bigger and bigger, really.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you are totally right. Totally.
Yeah. But another thing that you mentioned, something that worries me is laboratory-based ingredients, 3D dimensions from insects. I mean, even plant-based vegetarians, I don't think they'd be happy to eat insects, you know.
Yeah.
And but I think, you know, I'll give an example. BSC, bovine spongiform encephalopathy. Basically, if you feed protein into the supply chain, into the animals, and it's the problem with mechanically recovered meat, it was a protein or a form of protein that caused brain disease. Mm-hmm. If you look at cannibals eating human protein, it causes brain disease. So if you create proteins that are novel, you know, is there going to be some sort of long-term health issue with brain diseases? Because these are novel proteins that don't naturally exist in nature, you know. So that worries me. I think that the food safety aspect of all these novel proteins worries me.
Yeah, that's why I always use the opportunity every year to speak about the food industry trends every year. And I had the opportunity to speak with lots of people who are in these food trends. Even I contacted the person, they are from, I think, Spain, and they developed, the company is called Nova Meat, and they have developed the meat from the, let's call it a laboratory, you know. So this is very interesting to talk about. And also I have one company that has developed the honey from the also laboratory. And I don't know what to think about this in as a future food or future, you know, eating habits. What will be there for us? You know, I don't suspect in the food safety of these products, but you know, we should also stop talking about the food safety of the products as I want my product to be safe when I eat it in next 4 or 12 hours. You know, we need to talk about food safety as the product when I eat it to be healthy for a long time. So not just thinking about the food poisoning, but also we need to think about the food safety as the products that we consume that can get us, I don't know, some autoimmune disease or some cancer or something like that, you know. So these are the aspects that we need to focus on in the future when we start developing our food safety systems. And yeah, so that's basically it, David. I wanted also to ask you additionally, because I'm going to promote in this YouTube video the link to your company and to your LinkedIn account, so people just can contact you in case of some consultancy and some further issues. And I wanted to ask, what are the additional things that Hayfields Food Safety Consultancy is doing? This is not just the only thing regarding the vegan products.
Yeah, basically I work with startup companies or companies that are stepping up, getting bigger, and basically make them BRC, GFSI compliant. And the companies I work with, they can be basically SMEs, so they're quite small or medium sized. And I either approach the BRC Start, basic and intermediate, which is a simpler version, but it's still GFSI recognized. And then, or I prepare them for full BRC. So I provide them procedures, training, validation, basically every clause, whatever's required, how to implement it and how to coordinate it. I work on BRC basically. And then sometimes I'll work with high risk high care companies who have listeria issues where they have to risk assess and prevent it from happening, root cause analysis, that sort of stuff. So those are some of the examples. And then sometimes I work with people like Marks and Spencer's on VASUP, TASUP, all those sorts of things. But again, that all relates to their fragments from the BRC. So I'm very BRC focused, really. So so those are the other things that it includes.
Yeah, when you mentioned VASUP, this is very interesting topic in the food safety of the vegan products, because this is connected with the food fraud.
Perfect.
Yeah, this is very important thing regarding the ingredients, regarding the communication on the final labeling, some consumer awareness about the ingredients, etc. So this food fraud aspect is a really big thing, I think, and the requirement in the production of vegan products.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, my understanding of VASUP has always been likelihood of detection, likelihood of occurrence. The occurrence is greater because you're making a claim, and also a lack of education, so the errors are there. And the detection could be problems, because if we're dealing with novel products or products that people aren't associated with, can we detect them using an accredited test laboratory? So all the things that will make the risk higher, it's all there with vegan claims. So absolutely agree with you with VASUP. And what worries me about the BRC and other GFSI schemes is that I don't think VASUP has been implemented as well as it can be. Years and years of auditing, I've only found one factory where they have high risk ingredients for fraud, and that's eggs, because it's free range, and maybe a few other examples. But 90% of people are saying our products, there's no risk at all. And I'm thinking, well, you know what, there is. You know, I've looked at your ingredients and I've talked to them, and they scratch their heads and say, okay, we'll do another risk assessment perhaps.
Yeah, I understand totally. I have few confectionery productions, and one of them is the biggest in Serbia and real brand. And for example, they have a list of ingredients that are coming from all sides of the parts of the world, and there are a lot of ingredients that could be fraudulent. For example, the I don't know, hazelnuts. Also the cocoa, the palm oil, a lot of ingredients that can be fraudulent. So they are, even the honey, the milk, they have it all. So they have done a real, assessment in these types of ingredients, and then they found 5 of them that are with the highest risk. And for them, they are doing the specific, authenticity tests with the laboratories, etc., etc. So this is really a high level of understanding of the food fraud. Yeah,
definitely. I agree with that. And it's so perfectly applicable to vegan claims, plant-based claims, whatever. It absolutely. The thing is, vegan products aren't space. They don't come from outer space. They're just normal food products with a normal food risks. They're either ambient, high care, or high risk. No, there's no difference really. So, VASUP has to look at that. And I absolutely agree. It's a genuine increase in risk. You're going to get at least medium risk ingredients easily, especially if it's going to go global with the supply chains. So we'll have to wait and see with that. But it's a very interesting. I will add to that. A thing that people get mixed up is TASUP, which is in the actual manufacturing environment. If people don't like vegans, they eat animals, they resent it. What's to stop them from using milk powder, instead of the vegan, substitute? So there's an increase there. Or what about errors where people just they're not supervised and trained and simply don't understand the difference, the importance. Yes. So there's all, the good thing about talking to somebody like yourself, Vladimir, GFSI guys, you can see all the complexity and how you can get problems. And this vegan certification standard that I've created, it really is a guy like myself who's worked for 20 years, working in a food factory, working in BRC, and I've looked at all the weaknesses and I've looked at everything, put it together, no duplication, it's where it's supposed to be. So if you were to read the standard, you'd understand it, you'd be familiar with it. So that was the idea. Whereas the BRC, I think they did it in a day or a week. They got together and they just threw it all together, and it's messy and it's too simplistic and generic.
Yes, yes.
Anyway,
just for the David, some near end, I would like to ask you one last question, and this is, what do you expect from the vegan products, or how they will be developed, and the food safety of vegan products in, let's say, next 5 years? How do you see it?
Well, what I think is they're going to become much more commercially viable. So your top retailers are going to get attracted to it. The companies that make milk, such as Alpro, and then they start to see that the vegan milk is making more money than the animal origin, they're going to start legislating, and they're going to start insisting that certification bodies take it a bit more serious. If they've got a private label that's a global winner, they don't want that product to have milk or fish in it. They're going to be interested in their brand protection. So I think it's going to become much more professional. And I think the idea of GFSI certification is going to be much more relevant. I think the only reason it's not at the moment is because of COVID. I think it's been delayed by 1 or 2 years. And I think at the end of this year, things are going to start changing. Absolutely guaranteed. So that will be the change.
Okay, thank you very much.
It's going to be led by the retailers.
Thank you very much, David. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Vladimir. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Yes, of course. It was a real pleasure also talking with you. And I wish you lots of success in 2021, and a lot of health, of course. So I hope that till the end of the year, we will have one more opportunity just to have a small update what is happening, and also to check with your standard with the vegan, and maybe to cooperate further on this topic.
Brilliant. Thank you, Vladimir. Take good care of yourself. Stay safe, and it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Take care.
Also,
bye-bye.
Thank you.